I've been fascinated as I started looking at the Sermon on the Mount that Jesus begins, and it says that he had been healing the sick and doing miracles, and these crowds had gathered. And as they had gathered, he withdrew himself, and the disciples withdrew with him, and he went up onto this mountainside. And it actually says at the beginning that he went up the mountainside and sat down, and his disciples came to him, and he began to teach them. I just get this picture of so often I've thought that Jesus' words were just for anybody and everybody that was listening. But Jesus intentionally withdrew for this sermon to teach just his disciples. As he did so, the crowd that had gathered, they came and listened too. And later in the sermon, it actually talks about how so many of them were astonished and so many of them thought about what it was that Jesus was saying. But there's this juxtaposition of people who want to hear what Jesus has to say. There's the group of people who have been walking with him and living with him, and they're intimately connected to who he is. And they hear this teaching and they're deeply trying to apply it to the life, trying to figure out what it is that they can learn from the rabbi who teaches like no other rabbi ever has. But then there's this other crowd, as they're called, that they're just trying to figure out what the next trick is Jesus might do, or how they can find the miracle, how they can get new and sustaining life. And Jesus kind of gives these words to both of them. Sometimes I wonder, as I reflect on what it is that he's taught, am I reflecting as the person who's come to find words of life? Or am I the crowd who's just watching, who's just waiting for the next show, trying to see what Jesus puts on display for himself to prove his divinity? Am I one of the crowds, or am I the disciple who loves and is excited? Jesus begins to paint this picture to both of those groups of what life looks like. He starts with these Beatitudes, and the first four are not what people would have pictured. He starts with this: blessed are the poor in spirit, and blessed are those who mourn, blessed are the meek, blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. And we hear those things, and they're not the things we would think of. We think like blessed is the one who just got healed, blessed is the one who's God's chosen, blessed is the one who's completely pure. But Jesus starts with a different picture, a picture of these states that we just have to recognize are true. I can't remember choosing to be poor in spirit, or choosing to mourn, choosing to be meek, choosing to be hungry or thirsty. These are things that we recognize from within us. And Jesus says, when you can find that that's true and be comfortable with that for yourself, then you'll be blessed. Then the kingdom of heaven will be yours. Then you'll be comforted. You'll inherit the earth, and you'll be filled. Not when you've attained the gift that he's given you, though that happens and we love that. Not when you've achieved the behavior and the lifestyle he wants for you. But when you recognize the state of blessedness that's within.